What up, gang? Let's get on into this yip. Today, we're asking what if? What if the airbenders were not pacifists? So there's this iconic scene that I constantly think about at every drive that I have to work. It's in The Legend of Korra. We get a glimpse at a different kind of airbender. After the whole harmonic convergence and the unbalancing of the world tries to rebalance itself by buffing up some people's stats, giving them airbending abilities. One such people is Zahir, the revolutionary, the terrorist, the prisoner, the short king. You know, there's an awful lot of terrorist revolutionaries, violent revolutionaries in The Legend of Korra. Maybe we should talk about that sometime soon. Zahir, let me just note, I love how The Legend of Korra specifically, Avatar: The Last Airbender in general does this, but Legend of Korra is really good at crafting villains. Because in their eyes, they're doing a good thing. They're doing the right thing. And to many people, they're doing a good thing, maybe disagreeing with the means, and maybe the means aren't necessarily good. But all this to say, Zahir wasn't just some disruptor, wasn't just some agent of chaos, wasn't someone who was just trying to take over in general. He was complex, he was nuanced, he was wanting to make the world a better place, at least in his eyes. Hashtag Zahir was right. He was under the impression that he was doing the right thing, but it required a violent means to see the whole system flip on its head. To be fair, when you look at what's going on in the Earth Kingdom under the regime of the Earth Queen, you kind of want to take her breath away. That's what Zahir does. I'm not talking about romantically. He's booed up. He has that the boom boom eye lady as his side lady, main lady. No, he takes her breath away literally in a what is nightmare fuel for the rest of my life. It's here that we get a glimpse at a new kind of airbender, at a what if in Avatar. It makes me question, what if airbenders were never pacifists? Early on in the series, Aang establishes that air nomads were pacifists. Were because they all died. Because they were non-aggressive, they were non-violent. They weren't really good at protecting themselves, if you ask me. But even further than that, we still get the idea that their ancient roots were still non-aggressive. And here's what I mean. First, let's tie it to real life. Obviously, there's roots in Eastern traditions, cultures, religions, and philosophies, such as Hinduism and Buddhism. But we get a glimpse at what the original benders were like through the narrative of Avatar Juan. He's not Avatar. I always want to say Avatar Juan. He's Avatar Juan. That would be a different story. On his adventure, protecting the spirits, getting to know Vaatu. Kind of went off the track there, off the script there, and I'm not sure if he helps Vaatu. Which one is the white light spirit? Editing Mike. Was I right? He encounters a lion turtle full. What do you think? Do you think that you were right? No, it's Rava. Rava is the light spirit. How do you get that wrong? He encounters a lion turtle full of airbenders that boast of an identical way of living as those who lived in Aang's early life. Probably vegetarian based on the food that they were picking from the trees. In their first reactions, encountering someone leaning more towards avoidance rather than violence. The only difference, it seems, is that they weren't nomadic in the traditional sense. They weren't just roaming around the different nations, as we hear about Aang doing throughout his life, getting to know people in the Fire Nation and the Earth Kingdom. I think it's safe to say that non-violence is pretty early established in the traditions of the airbenders. You know, until we get to Yang Chen. She's a different story. Violence. But what if, in the beginning, somewhere along the line, one of the airbenders was like, hey, I'm tired of being pushed around, kicked on the ground, spat in my face. I'm gonna blow them back. And make them stop breathing. Now we're running this joint. We're taking over all the nations. When I tell you, it would be so easy for the airbenders to take over every other nation. I mean, it would be so easy. Here's what I mean. Firebenders. Think about it. We know about fire. Fire thrives off air, off oxygen. Deprive the air from the fire, they ain't got nothing going on. Iroh himself says that fire comes from the breath. Don't forget your dragon breathing. Steal oxygen from the flame, they've got nothing. Deuces. Fire Nation is toast. Get it? Because toast. But Mike, I hear you say, what about its opposing force? Earthbending. Well, we see in Aang's fights that he can easily maneuver around King Bumi and Toph, some of the best benders of their time. And that's like a bare minimum level. Aang is a master of airbending, hence his tattoos, but bare minimum of what they're fully capable of. We think about the max level, full detachment mode Zahir. Bro, the ground is optional. It's like a Halo 3 custom game, and you set the gravity up to 0. Earth isn't touching them. Waterbenders, look, I love me some waterbenders. They're very versatile. Swamp bending, ice bending, mist bending, blood bending. Hear me out. Water is still pretty limited. You're kind of limited to what you're able to access. And it leaves you kind of vulnerable. If you want to get really scientific about it, the chemical components of water, oxygen, and hydrogen, you just extract those. Or maybe you boil them. I don't know how air works. It doesn't really get scientific on us. Okay. Let's assume that they're not trying to take over every other nation. That they're just regular Joe Schmoes. They're not tyrannical. They're not imperialistic. They're just open to the idea of like retaliation and proportional, return of violence. Doing what's necessary. And this is where we get the idea of what Yang Chen advises Aang to do in stopping King Fire Lord Ozai. He was willing to do what was necessary for maintaining the peace and the balance of the nations. Let's be honest, this is often a guise used for a lot of imperialist regimes. Oh, we're just going to go over to that place to prevent the danger from happening so that there's peace everywhere. Yeah, that's how bad empires start. But let's look at it in a small scale. This is an average cabbage cart owning individual about to get rocked in the head, and he can retaliate. At the bare minimum, the least is they would not have been taken over by Sozin. Sozin had to use the power of the comet in order to best the airbenders. And he had to do it under the cover of night, and it is a surprise attack. If they even had like a fraction of retaliatory attitude, the airbenders would have stomped out the flame of the firebenders and took their breath away. But airbenders being pacifists, I think, make the story of Avatar a little bit more interesting. Just think about it. We would have way less depth, way less complex interactions with some of our characters who deal with airbending if they could just go BAMF mode. Aang's whole resolve to stick to his non-violent tendencies against Fire Lord Ozai is like a whole 4-episode arc. Like, it's this tension ripping him apart, and it makes you get into his character and think about, what if I was in this situation? Because normally you wouldn't be in that situation. You wouldn't normally be thinking about, oh, should I take this guy out? Is there a way around this? I don't want to take this guy out. But it helps you wrestle. It's like a really visceral feeling. You're able to get into the character, into the meat of what it means to be Aang, and to deal with complex situations. But aside from that specific idea of what stories can do for us, we get more lore in that whole arc, in that whole tension of him. Should I be non-violent? Should I be violent for this one issue, this one thing? We get a whole lot more lore about the past avatars. We get lore about the lion turtles. We even get a new understanding about what bending mean, which I think is pretty cool. And while it's cool to see people fight against the grain every once in a while, if everyone was like that, it would kind of be boring. I imagine there's some good stories that can come from that. Like one rebellious person who would be like, hey, we have too much power. And you could ask the question, what does it mean to use your power responsibly? But Spider-Man already did that. So that's a boring story. Boo. Maybe you could get a story about other non-powerful benders, not as strong benders as the airbenders, coming together and creating new solutions to deal with the problem and having to work together to deal with that sort of problem. I don't know, I'm not a Hollywood writer. Overall, I think if the airbenders could result in using violence, I think the stories would be a little bit more boring. If airbenders weren't pacifists, I don't think that we would have enjoyed the story of Avatar: The Last Airbender as much as we do in its current form. Well, that's my what if for today. If you guys have other what ifs that you've always wondered about Avatar: The Last Airbender, what if the Fire Nation's conquest didn't succeed? What if Toph wasn't blind? What if everyone had a dragon? And this was like Aragon or something, or someplace like a movie where people have dragons. I want to do like more series like this, so make sure to hit that subscribe, like, and yip. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.